I'm Nick Shell, and perhaps I'm the first person you've ever known to actually take a DNA test. I did MyHeritage DNA test. The results came back in this week. Let me toss this on the couch. All right, there we go. I was planning on doing like this, really cool, like, okay, here's the results. But it didn't work out that way because it was much more complicated than I was expecting. Like, I was really confused because my whole life I've been a quarter Italian. My mom's whole life, she's been half Italian. And her dad's whole life, he's been 100% Italian. His father came here from Italy off the boat, speaking the language, with the look, with the name, the first and the last name, same with his brothers. Yet this says I'm 0% Italian. So that's the big shocker here. Other things I went into this expecting that maybe I was part Jewish, maybe I was even part African because my mom's mother is Mexican, and you never know. I mean, because I know Puerto Ricans can be in African descent. But here's what I actually am. 37.4% is what I'm going to call Central Western European, which is Germany, the Netherlands / Holland is the name for it, France, Austria, Belgium, Switzerland. So that's a little over a third of who I am. That's 37.4. Next on the list is 31.8, so almost a third is Iberian, which is from Spain or Portugal. Now, in addition to that, don't be confused by this, I'm also 21.6% Central American, which is the bloodline, in Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. Now, my grandmother's parents, they moved from southern Mexico. And doing the math, that means my Mexican grandmother was actually something like 86% Central American, separate from Spain, separate from Spanish blood, because keep in mind, Mexicans are not their own race. They're a mixed race. And whatever part of them is not Central American in their blood is European, which typically is going to be Spanish. But in her case, she was mostly Central American and not Spanish. Next on the list, we dropped tremendously. By the way, just doing the math though, that means I'm over half Latino, right? And that means by default, my dad has to be part Spanish or Portuguese as well, just doing the numbers the way they add up. Okay, next on the list, I'm 6.1% Eastern European, which could be Russia, Czech Republic, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, Croatia, Estonia, Slovenia, and Slovakia. Most likely that's probably Polish because my dad's from the South. Typically, if you're Eastern European and you're in the South, it's probably Polish roots. That's my guess. Next is I'm 2.3% Balkan, which I didn't even know what that meant, but it's Romania, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Bulgaria, and Albania. That's probably on my mom's side. The part that I thought was Italian, that's probably where that is. And then I'm 0.8% Middle Eastern, which is Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, Kuwait, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. So that's interesting because I always thought, well, maybe I'm a little bit Jewish, but it's, I guess, the opposite if I'm Middle Eastern. But I'm definitely not Jewish. And so it tells you in the test what you're definitely not. So that way, that's how I came up with these countries that I would be from. And keep it in mind, why can't I know whether or not, the 37.4, is it Germany or is it Dutch or is it French? Well, think of it this way, modern countries and their borders are somewhat arbitrary. So it could be the same bloodline, but now we divide it up and now we're this country. But that part of me has to be German because my last name is Shell, and I looked it up. It's a German last name. It matches, so that's how I'm figuring that out. I have to use deductive reasoning. But I came up with these countries I've already named because here's the things I'm definitely not. These are the countries I'm definitely not from, or the ethnicities that I'm not. I'm definitely not from England, Finland, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, so nowhere there in the British Isles, Scandinavia, Greece, Italy, again, shocking, but I'm not Italian, Sardinia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Ashkenazi Jewish, I don't know how to pronounce that, Yemenite Jew, Mizrahi Jew, Native American, South American, Indigenous, Amazonian, African, I already said that, Asian, and Oceanic. I'm not claiming to know how to pronounce these places, but I can tell you that I'm not from there at all. No part of my DNA. Now, it is a conundrum because, so my mom's taking the test, and this whole thing about us being Italian our whole lives, we'll figure this out by the time she takes her test. But, so it's like, I finally know, but at the same time, let's let's have my mom do the test too. So in about another month, we'll know for sure that it is true that we're not actually Italian, despite my great grandfather moving from there and speaking the language. And it's confusing, but I'm open-minded enough to understand that just as America is a melting pot, so is Spain, so is Italy, and there's probably a lot of people going through there. Maybe they only stayed a generation, adopted the names, and then moved here. You know, that could make sense. And we can't know for sure that my great-grandfather, he married someone with the last name of Vite, which I looked it up, and that's actually more of a French word than anything. So I'm coming to grasp with it, but that's the big shocker, to be Italian your whole life, and your mom's half Italian, and your grandfather, I grew up with him all the time. I was around him. He was Italian, but he wasn't. I mean, he was part Balkan, and he was part Middle Eastern, and maybe he was Spanish the whole time. Maybe he would, I mean, by default, doing the numbers, he had to be mainly Spanish. But this also implies that my dad is also part Spanish. So I get a lot of Spanish and or Portuguese blood from several different sources here. So this is what I've learned. But just like when you watch an episode of Lost and you finally, I finally got an answer I've been looking for. Well, it only raises that many more questions. So I'm going to keep searching. But man, if only I knew this when I was in high school, I could have probably got a scholarship for being Latino, because I'm more Latino than anything when you combine the Spanish and the Central American. I'm more than half. I'm like 53% Latino now. So at age 36, I find out I'm more Latino than I am anything. So I'll keep you posted on more news, but that's what I know so far.